Hey everyone, it's Alex and welcome to the Spotlight Cache Guide, where we're going to be discussing the best Spotlight caches for the month of May, and we'll be looking forward to June to seeing which Spotlight caches provide the most potential for your hard-earned Spotlight keys. What I will say right off the top though is that I'm kinda a little disappointed, so I want to just kind of get this off my chest right off the bat here, because I do think there's a little too much fodder in these Spotlight caches. So the cards themselves that are being released seemed super interesting. I am actually really excited to get my hands on almost every single card coming out in each and every week, which is a great thing. But the cards that are accompanying the new cards in the Spotlight caches seem to be getting weaker. They seem to be more Series 4 cards. There seem to be cards that like people just don't really care that much about. And so I feel like they're just kind of diluting the pool a little bit. You really want Nocturne, but like, or Nocturne I should say. But like, do you really want Selene? Caiera is a good call. Like I definitely like Caiera, but like this is actually not even a bad cache. But there's some caches where like you're just getting these Series 4 cards. You're like, man, I already have this, or I have the 3,000 tokens. Like I don't want to be spending keys on these Series 4 cards. And the other side to that, it seems like the Spotlight key art is not nearly as strong as it used to be. We're not getting like, art's obviously extremely subjective, but I just feel like we're not getting the cream of the crop in the Spotlight caches either, where you're seeing variants being released in the store that would have been amazing Spotlight variants. They're just not. They're in the store, because you got to spend gold. So, I mean, that is the most disappointing thing for me moving forward. Looking at these next 2 months, I feel like the Spotlight variant's a little weak. I feel like there's a lot of fodder in the caches, and I hope that that gets better. The releases themselves seem pretty cool, but the Spotlight caches as a whole, like what you'll be rolling into, feel kind of worse than ever. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because you're going to be in a situation, especially as a free-to-play player, where you're going to want to roll on your caches, and you're going to be like, oh, I missed on Nocturne, but I got like Selene, and I just don't care, right? And I think that kind of sucks. But anyways, I digress. Let's get into the main point of conversation here. May 7th to 14th. I think this is a very strong week. I'm actually really thinking that Nocturne is going to be a very strong card. I think the random effect of the Scarlet Witch location change can be a bit frustrating, but if you think of it from like a standpoint of like, okay, you have Move that can activate this a whole bunch of time. That's kind of obvious. And I don't know if Move's ever going to be quite good enough to really take advantage of Nocturne. I think where it's really going to be good is like Silver Surfer, where you have Crimson Cosmos, where you can't play 1, 2s, or 3s, and you can move Nocturne into that location to then be able to play your cards. I do think it's also very good for like Angela decks, where the Angela Elsa type archetype. At the end of the day, if you think about Jeff as a 2-3 Vision, like these are cards that have incredible versatility, and yeah, Nocturne has that versatility as well, with a little bit of location risk to some degree, because like sometimes you move Nocturne and then it's a bar with no name, great, now I lose, right? So there is some risk there, but ultimately it seems like it's going to be pretty good. Caiera I think is a good card as well. I think it's a bit of a victim to the meta right now. The decks that have traditionally played Caiera are completely fallen off. Thanos is not playing it. High Evo is not really meta right now. And so Caiera, although I think is a great card, is not meta relevant at a 1.0% kind of popularity. And then Selene, again, is even lower. Now, I actually like Selene, but admittedly, it's like the least necessary card in the junk and disruption decks. Like, you just don't need it. Like, I do like it, because I do like running Hobbs and green gobs and stuff, and like it's a great card for that. But again, wholly unnecessary, despite the fact that it has quite a bit of disruption capabilities. Overall, this week is all about Nocturne. It's unfortunate you do have to, I think Caiera is good. If Nocturne really surprises, this could ultimately be a 4-star week. I think Selene kind of drags it down a little bit, because I think the most of the versions of junk and disruption are not running Selene at all. It's completely irrelevant from a meta perspective. And Caiera, I think we'll get there over time. As we move into May 14th to 21st, this is the Sage week. Now, this is very notable because Sage was changed from a 4-1 to a 3-0. This is significant. I think that this gives it a much lower floor and a higher floor and an even higher ceiling. Because, like, listen, +2 power for each other card that's there, of different power. I read that text totally wrong, but you get what it says. Long story short, if you have cards of different power there, right? Not different cost, different power, Sage will get +2 for each one present. It has a lot of key synergies, like for instance, if you play, Widow's Bite there, or Widow's Kiss, I should say, even Widow's Bite, but Widow's Kiss will go over as a -4. The White Widow's going to be a 2-2. They might play like a Ravonna there as a 2-3. Then you play your Sage, and boom, 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 right? 3-6. Those are pretty damn good stats, right? What I will say as well, though, is that this card feels like it's going to be one of those cards you want to play later. So if you're thinking about like a Sarah Surfer style deck, you play Sarah on turn 6, you're going to want to play Sage, right? You're going to want to play Sage later on in the game. What remains to be tested here is whether or not the initiative matters, because if cards are unrevealed, their power's not present, and maybe Sage won't account for it. We don't know that yet. However, if it doesn't matter, if initiative doesn't matter, this card's even better. If initiative does matter, it makes it a little wonkier. But still, it has a very high ceiling potential. And so ultimately, I see it as like a 3, potentially even 4-star card, just on a pure power standpoint. Like you can get to what, like 314 if like the stars align, which is pretty crazy, right? And then the other thing about this is you have Legion, which is a great inclusion here. Series 4, which I think takes a little bit off of the value of the inclusion. It's recently nerfed, but it's honestly a very good card. Although it's not very popular right now, it still is a pretty decent surprise card. And Tribunal, despite slipping in popularity lately and not having the best win rate, it is a full archetype defining card that seems to come back relatively frequently. Tribunal was a favorite when Hela was running rampant, and I do think that like I give it 4 stars because like it is a pure archetype play. You get Tribunal, and like the pieces are relatively inexpensive too, like the Ironmans and the Onslaughts and etc. And like you've got a deck you can play that's relatively competitive. So overall, 3-star week. Even though I do like Legion, again, Series 4 drags it down a bit, and Sage, with the most recent change, does seem like it has a little more potential than it did before. Going to May 21st to 28th, we have Namora, and this is by far the weakest week. In fact, I think that Namora is probably a 1-star card. That could potentially be a 2-star card. And the reason why I say this is because like junk is so prevalent right now. Like Mill and junk are super popular. Black Widow just came out. White Widow, I should say, just came out. And there's Widow Kisses everywhere. And people are playing a lot of junk, a lot of disruption, a lot of goblins. And that just completely just destroys Namora. Like, completely destroys Namora. Unless your plan is to leave the Widow's Kiss in a lane and buff it with, like, Wong Namora Odin, which is... I mean, I'm going to try it, I guess. But honestly, like, I think the meta couldn't be worse for Namora. This is the most skippable week of the month. I didn't give it a 1-star because I do think Black Knight is a good card. It's not meta popular right now. It'll come back, though. It'll come back because, like, there's, like, this ebb and flow of the meta. Like, people just, they played a lot of Black Knight. Whatever, I'm over it, and they stopped playing it. The card is still good. The archetype is still good. So I think that, it's going to be just fine. Skaar is an interesting one. I'm giving it a 2-star rating, but I think that could go up to 3. The reason for this is because you're getting like Sasquatch, even to some degree. I think that like there's going to be more powerful cards dropping earlier in this new meta. So there's a chance Skaar is going to be discounted pretty frequently. So I think that there might be some synergy there that Skaar can take advantage of, which might raise his popularity. His win rate's already solid, but the decks that traditionally use Skaar have completely fallen off. Again, like Thanos, it's kind of Skaar's a victim of the Thanos nerfs and changes. But ultimately, if you want to get Black Knight, I think it's definitely worth having in your collection. But Namora, I don't see this card having a chance if Mill and Disrupt and Junk are going to remain as they are. I just don't see it having a chance at all. So definitely a 1-star card given the current meta as of recording. But hey, May 21st is like 3 weeks away. A lot can change, and I'm hoping it does for poor Namora. As we move to May 28th and June 4th, the 4-star week of the month. I really like this week a lot. Sasquatch, I think, is going to be an absolute phenomenal card. You got Mockingbird synergy with like Rey Mysterio. Oh my gosh. Shout out to everyone who knows who Rey Mysterio is. Just Mysterio. Obviously, like, I think those decks are going to be very popular, like the Mysterio Hitmonkey Bishop style things, because Sasquatch is going to love those decks. Sasquatch is going to work perfectly with those types of cards, especially when you consider like Mockingbird also gets discounted by things like the Mysterio. So like I think this is an absolute fire card. I think this is good. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets nerfed a bit before it comes out. Like I wonder if it turns into a 7 cost. I don't think they bring it to like 610. I don't know if they bring it to 6. Sorry, it is 610. I don't know if they bring it to 6.9. Although it's nice, the problem with that is like it now just dodges Shang-Chi. I think they want Shang-Chi to be a risk factor for the card at 610. So anyways, we'll have to see. Havok is a Series 4 card, 2-star card. It's not meta popular. I actually love Havok. I like playing Havok a lot, but it's not meta relevant. And the fact that it's a Series 4 brings it down to 2 stars. And Ravonna. I actually really like Ravonna. I've loved Ravonna. Ravonna's been a card I talk about all the time on the Snapchat. Like, I love this card. And it's more relevant now than it's ever been. Nearly a 10% popularity, solid win rate, great effect. But, like, it's a Series 4 card. So like, if this was Series 5, I think Ravonna's a 4-star for sure, but again, you got 3,000 tokens. So it's a little bit of a harder sell from a Spotlight Cache key perspective, right? Ravonna, honestly, I do like Ravonna. I think if you don't have it, I think this week's a definite roll if you don't have Ravonna. And I think Havok's a nice flavor piece, but that's just me. That's just me. I think Sasquatch is probably going to be one of the best cards of the month. I think the Season Pass card Blink's going to be crazy. Nocturne's going to be good. Namora is probably the most poo-poo of them all. But at the end of the day, I think it's a pretty balanced month. Every card seems pretty interesting with the exception of Namora. And that takes us to the Eternals month. Now, we're looking ahead a little bit. What I will say, there's a chance that a lot of stuff changes here. Second Dinner has been making modifications to cards like on the eve of their release, where we've had a couple times where like the trailer stats aren't even what the release stats are. Like Beta Ray Bill was like that. And so like a lot of stuff can change here. Now, I do think there's some more fodder here, which sucks, but not this week. I do think that Thena looks pretty cool, right? Thena as a card, +3 power if you play exactly 2 cards is pretty cool, but it's tricky. And I don't know if the play pattern is going to be kind of play that you want to play. I just feel like I was looking at this, I'm like, do I really want to play Marvel Snap where like I'm stressed about this Athena and only playing 2 cards at a time? And what do 2 cards at a time look like on 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? Like it's not always that easy. And yeah, you can run up the stats pretty hard, but even if it's just a 2/4, is that just enough? Is it just enough, right? That remains to be seen. I think there's some potential here for Thena here, but ultimately, I think the real winner is going to be Gladiator. If you don't have Gladiator, this is amazing. I think Gladiator is a fantastic card. I think the Spotlight variant art here is actually very good, and you have a 20% popularity on this Gladiator. It's a must get. I almost gave it 5 stars. Maybe I should have given it 5 stars. I love Gladiator. Obviously, it has some risks associated with it. A very, very balanced effect. But I do think the card is definitely a must grab for your collection. It's being played everywhere, from good cards to Surfer to whatever the hell it's going to go in. It does its job. And then Grandmaster, listen, I've done a lot of coping and hoping with Grandmaster. It's a 1-star card. It sucks. I do see its potential here and there. There have been a couple of Ravonna-based decks where it actually performs pretty well. But it's like, again, it's like the 13th card out of every deck. Like, you're like, I should probably just cut Grandmaster here, and the deck's just better. You get a little bit of higher end play with Grandmaster. You get a little of a higher ceiling with a lot of your on reveals. But ultimately, Grandmaster, not what you're looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets buffed to a 2/1 before this date, by the way. Then we have June 11th to June 18th. Now, Sersi's a cool card, but I'm a little like, I don't know. I'm not as high as it on others might be. The reason for this is because like any type of random effect outside of that of Nico, which although random has like a very set pattern, like not a pattern, but like you know what you're getting when you're turning your card into a demon, or you're giving additional power, or you're copying it or destroying it or whatever. With Sersi, it's super random, right? It's like that turn axe location. It's like, oh, I played down a card and now I got something totally random, and that kind of sucks sometimes. Sometimes it's good. But that randomness, I don't know. Like I feel like the most consistent decks in Marvel Snap are the ones that often have the best cube rates, the ones that can be reliably played and have reliable results. And well, yeah, like would you snap on something like a Sersi? Right? Like, what do you play to like really take? Because you could just get, oh, I got a Dracula, and you know I'm playing a Surfer deck or whatever. I don't know how you play Sersi in a Surfer deck, but you get what I mean, right? Like, it's kind of a little awkward that you play a bunch of 2-drops, play Sersi and then Surfer. I don't know, man. So they'll turn into 3s. But what I will say though is I think that this week is okay. Miek, although Series 4 is a staple in discard right now, it's actually one of the better cards in discard. Like, it's actually super good now. But again, it's only discard and it's Series 4. I'm going to make an argument though for Phoenix Force. I'm giving it a 3 to 4 star rating because I think that the stats are not indicative of how good this card actually is. Every time we talk about Phoenix Force, I think people pick it up. It gets like this bump up in popularity, and then people just tank its win rate super hard. A really good Phoenix Force player is a force to be reckoned with. And if you truly want to commit to mastering Phoenix Force, you're going to be like you're going to be like be able to climb very effectively. Like, the deck is extremely difficult to pilot, but extremely rewarding. So I think Phoenix Force is one of those cards I think is being slept on. I think the play pattern is very complex, and I think it turns a lot of people off. And when people play it kind of casually, they tank the stats. But a very skilled and dedicated Phoenix Force player is terrifying, and it activates a whole archetype on its own. And the pieces are pretty expensive. So if you get Phoenix Force, there's a good chance you can kind of hobble together at least a very effective or decent Phoenix Force deck. So ultimately, another 3-star week. We go to June 18th to 25th, and we got Makkari, X23, and MODOK. I feel like MODOK and X23 have been in like a million spotlight caches. They're kind of like null at this point. I don't know why they're in the spotlight caches again, but X23 is good. I mean, if you don't have it yet, I don't know how you don't. Definitely worth getting. Definitely a 4-star card. Good popularity. It's a staple in almost every Destroy deck, and Destroy tends to be a staple in the meta, right? So definitely worth checking out. MODOK is a Series 4. Feels a little bit bad. Again, it's been the spotlight cache so many times. It is good in discard, but like the targeted discard you're seeing with like Black Knight doesn't run MODOK and doesn't. So like you're not even running MODOK in a lot of the more modern decks, right? So it's kind of interesting to see. Like it is a good piece, but you don't need it. And so it kind of brings it down a little bit. Although for discard, if you're a discard gamer, it's definitely a 3-star card. Man, I thought about bringing him down to 2. I don't know. MODOK at 3 stars feels like maybe a little bit of hopium, because I think there's like discard's just not playing that way anymore. But nothing does what MODOK does. But at the end of the day, I do think Makkari is going to be an interesting card. The idea of coming out of your hand into a location is good. Is going to be enough for Surfer. I mean, Surfer can play Sebastian Shaw, gets massive. Gladiator's just a 3/8. The 3/3 that just jumps onto the board. Is that enough? Is it enough, right? It's going to be at the end of the turn as well, so you draw into it, so you can't even, like, buff it with, like, a Nakia. You'd have to use an Okoye to buff it from the deck. If it starts in your hand, it just goes down, and then you're like, oh, good, it just landed in some location I wish it wasn't there for, right? Like, oh, the bar with no name, perfect. It's always going to seek the location where it's going to die, right? So that's a little unfortunate. But an interesting card. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 3/4 at the end of the day. But again, like a very safe 3-star rating. It's the pieces on the side. It's the contents of the Spotlight Cache, which seem more interesting than some of the new cards at times, although I am interested in that card. Then we have Phastos and Spiderham and Corvus Glaive. Now, Spiderham and Corvus Glaive, very good cards. Corvus Glaive, obviously a discard and ramp staple. The Spiderham, another Series 4 card, but it's much more popular. Like, it's one of the better Series 4 cards, especially for Conquest. It just breaks my heart because I feel like we've had a lot of Spiderham in our Spotlight Caches, and there's so many other cards that probably could have been included. It's just kind of sad, right? It's got Spiderham. It's like, imagine if that was like Hope Summers. Like, you know what I mean? Imagine that was Hope Summers. Like, how much more exciting this would have been. But hey, I digress. Phastos itself seems a little wild. Seems okay. Again, another 3-star card. Like, it seems like they're very conservative with the power. A very random style effect that is good in theory, but a little unreliable. I don't know. I don't know if this deck, this particular card makes the cut. So like, I'm a little conservative on this. Like, it just doesn't excite me as much as it should. Although the effect is good, right? Maybe I'm a little low on this right now. As we get closer to the release date, we start to see how the meta starts to shape up. Again, we do that on the Snapchat. We do it multiple times on the Snapchat. So we'll definitely take a look there. Now, the next week, though, this is where you're like, Alex, you should be super excited. Why is this? Again, it's another 3-star week, but Arishem is definitely a 4-star card. 5-star in terms of like the Thanos Galactus level of like, well, it's a whole new archetype, right? It's a whole new way to play Marvel Snap. But I don't, like, from a competitive standpoint, it's probably closer to 4 stars. But start of the game, +1 energy, shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. Keep in mind, you do get to start with, like, you do get to build a deck of 12. Like, you get to make your deck. But you do get some random shuffling in there. Black Swan and Hercules are the cards. Like, it is so painful to me that the most exciting card of the month, the most impactful card of the month, gets Hercules and Black Swan. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean by the fodder. It's like, they're like, okay, well, we want people to roll for these caches, so let's not, they're going to roll for Arishem. We know they're going to roll here. So let's put Hercules there and Black Swan. So, you know, just to kind of, we don't want Gladiator. We don't Gladiator and X20. Imagine this was Gladiator X23, right? Like, you're like, oh man, I want to go for that week, but they just put fodder in here, and it's heartbreaking because everyone here is going to want Arishem. Everyone listening wants this card. Just because you want to, listen, you play Marvel Snap. It's a game. You play for fun. You want to win. You want to enjoy the process. And Arishem gives you a whole new way to play the game. We got Black Swan Hercules. This is what I meant earlier. I was like a little disappointed. But I actually do like Arishem. I think this is going to be a pretty cool card. I mean, in theory, Black Swan might see a bit of extra play. Like with Sasquatch, there's a chance Sasquatch makes Black Swan relevant, right? We're not quite there yet. But, I mean, again, we're recording this in May, early May. Maybe by the time this comes around, like Black Swan's the most broken card in Snap because of Sasquatch synergy, right? Like, who knows? And maybe Move is smashing everyone with Hercules and Nocturne and stuff, even though Nocturne doesn't even seem like it's going to be a move card. I don't know, man. This is like 2 months from now. This is the summer. Man, I'm looking forward to summer. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. You guys really are the best. I truly appreciate your patience as I ramble on about, like, you know, fodder in the Spotlight caches. Hit the like button if you haven't done it already. And we're on our way to 100,000 subscribers, guys. We're definitely trying to get there. So if you have not subscribed yet, consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And we'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.